and welcome to News at 6 on Rajya Sabha TV. I'm Aishwarya Kapoor. The big story this evening is certainly India's perfect start to the World Cup cricket, winning easily and in style against our rivals Pakistan. We also take a look at first renewable energy global investors meet in the national capital. But first up, the headlines. Cricket buffs around India celebrate as MS Dhoni's team beats Pakistan by 76 runs in a high-voltage match at the Adelaide Oval. Prime Minister Modi calls for innovation and research to develop green energy sources as he opens the first renewable energy global investors meet in New Delhi. Twin shootings in Denmark capital Copenhagen labelled another act of terror against free speech. Attacker has been shot dead. High alert sounded across the country. And in Ukraine, fighting between troops and pro-Russian rebels subsides as a ceasefire begins as per the Minsk Treaty. But fears persist of it being a fragile one. Well, our top story today, India's World Cup record of all wins against Pakistan remains intact. MS Dhoni's team beat Pakistan by 76 runs after giving the arch rivals a 301-run target. The Pakistan were all out for 224 runs. And as expected, celebrations around the country were just waiting to burst forth. Take a look.
Spontaneous celebrations erupted as their team crowns Pakistan in another high-nerve, high-voltage contest. Such visuals are being replicated around the country. The Sunday holiday mood, the evergreen attraction of an India-Pakistan contest and the ups and downs through the match. In short, this was another unforgettable encounter between the greatest rivals of world cricket.
India World Cup जीत गया! India World Cup जीत गया! World Cup! पाकिस्तान से नहीं World Cup! हमें भारत अगर विश्व कप जीता या नहीं जीता है, लेकिन हमारी उम्मीद थी पाकिस्तान से जीत गया तो हमने समझ लिया इंडिया वर्ल्ड कप जीत गई।
जैसा था इंडिया ही जीतेगी। इंडिया पाकिस्तान में हमेशा से इंडिया जीतती है और इंडिया जीत गई है तो वर्ल्ड कप की शुरुआत बहुत अच्छी हुई है। इससे ज्यादा खुशी की बात कोई नहीं हो सकती है। बहुत धमाकेदार शुरुआत।
Heads is the call.
The game itself was a huge draw from the start. Mahendra Singh Dhoni winning the toss and electing the bat first, the Virat Kohli-Shikhar Dhawan partnership setting in and going great guns, creating a new record partnership and on to Virat's victory. The turnaround in Shikhar Dhawan's run out and the fall of Virat Kohli seemed to have turned things around for Pakistan. India's wickets fell quickly after that and they were restricted by some fine bowling and 5 wickets by Sohail Khan. India ended with 300 for 7 after what looked like a 325 plus score at one stage. Pakistan got off to a slow start and could not keep up the momentum with a regular fall of wickets. For the Indian bowlers, a good outing for Mohammad Sami who restricted the run flow for Pakistan. Pakistan needed some 106 runs off the last 10 overs with 7 wickets down, but kept up a fight almost till the end. Virat Kohli with 107 runs was declared man of the match.
It's been hard to keep focus, but that's the skill at the international level. You gotta stay in your zone, you gotta stay in your own little space and try to work things out for yourself. And I've been trying to do that since I came to Australia actually, and that's been working for me. But it's been a tough one, but as I said, glad to get it through.
As the spectator will tell you, so much of the magic of the Cricket World Cup derives from this one high-tension encounter. It's been a slew of losses for Team India in Australia so far this season and it did not look good going into the World Cup. Hopes are that this victory can turn things around for the team ahead. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
All right, Jaydeep Basu, special correspondent with The Telegraph, is now joining us live for a perspective on that win. Jaydeep, now what a match. But now with this, India has gone 6-0 in World Cup matches against Pakistan. India couldn't have asked for a bigger and a better opening to their World Cup campaign, isn't it?
Yeah, certainly. Because prior to this, India's campaign in Australia was not going very well. They have not only won against Pakistan, they have won a match after a long time. Their last victory was against Afghanistan, which was in a warm-up match, which was a rather insignificant victory. And more importantly, after a long time, India has got the other team out fully in a match. They had taken 10 wickets in a match, which did not even happen against Afghanistan, if you remember. So it will not only give India a confidence in for beating Pakistan, but their bowling, which was under fire for the last couple of months, for reasons actually because the bowlers were not bowling too well. At least they have the confidence that they can get their opposition out.
Right, Jaideep, now speaking about man of the match, Kohli, splendid knock really from him. Was reminded of the in the Border Gavaskar Trophy, the knock that he had on the same ground.
Yeah, Virat Kohli's innings, of course, it is the most important innings of the match. But at the same time, if you look at it, he had an imperious innings, he had a splendid innings. But at the same time, Pakistan also made the mistake of dropping him twice. They dropped him on 7, they dropped him on 76. The match could have been gone the other way had they not done it. So Pakistan made several mistakes and they paid for it. Frankly speaking, one by one, first of all, Pakistan did not play their specialist wicketkeeper Sarfraz. They went for Akmal. And Akmal did not do very well. He even dropped a catch. They wanted to take Yasir, and they introduced him in the bowling very late. So all these factors also added to Pakistan's defeat. India, of course, played very well. Their bowlers played very well, and 2-century partnership which went in for the second wickets and the third wicket. It clinched the issue in favor of India.
Right. Obviously, speaking about India's batting, obviously Kohli played the big knock. But speaking about Shikhar Dhawan also, he gave an excellent partnership, and it did not look like someone who has been really looking for form of late, isn't it?
That's what I told you at the very start. See, not only Shikhar Dhawan, of course, Shikhar Dhawan was not batting very well and he was under fire. There was a lot of criticism against him, and perhaps today, had he not got run out in a most unfortunate way, he would have scored more runs the way he was batting. So this victory has not only given India a good start, a great confidence because they beat Pakistan, but a lot of their players who are not in their best form, like Shikhar Dhawan, like Indian bowlers, they have returned to form. This is a great plus point for India.
Right, a big plus point for India, Jaideep. But speaking about the match, where do you think really was the big turn that made India confident that from here they're going to win? What was the turning point according to you?
See, turning point of the match, there were two turning points. First turning point was dropping Virat Kohli twice. That was an unpardonable offence on the part of the Pakistan fielders.
Yes.
See, if you drop the best batsman of the opposition side twice, you can't catch him. Then you can't expect to win the match. And secondly, it was in the 24th over when Umesh Yadav got 2 wickets. And next over, Jadeja got another wicket. From 102 for 2, they came down to 105 for 5. And that is the point when they lost the match. It went out of their grip.
Right, but we should give some points to Misbah-ul-Haq, the way he played. Obviously, he's one of the oldest players in the team, and he has the kind of experience that Pakistan would require. But probably that was not enough for the team.
Misbah-ul-Haq played a very fine innings. He scored 76 runs. Actually, you can say he fought single-handedly. But if you look at his innings, it came at a time when he was actually fighting a losing battle. Perhaps he also knew about it. As long as Afridi was there was some hope. But after that, he was simply fighting a losing battle. He was probably trying to gap the margin of defeat, to narrow the margin of defeat. And when he was out, whether he was out or not, India by that time had pocketed the match.
Right. Jaideep, the last question. Obviously, a brilliant start for India as far as World Cup campaign is concerned. But how do you rate India's chances this time?
India's chances, or for that matter, for any team's chances in the World Cup, any serious team chances. I'm talking about India, Australia, New Zealand, Pakistan, England, all these kinds of teams. That will start only after 14th March. Because if you look at the groupings of this World Cup, you have to admit the fact that this is a very lopsided grouping.
True.
There are teams like UAE, Ireland, Zimbabwe, all these teams, and you are more or less sure that India will beat them. So India's reaching the quarterfinal was never in question. Even if India lost this match by 76 runs instead of Pakistan, it would have not hampered India's chances of going to the quarterfinals. So actual chances will begin from 14th of March when the quarterfinal stage will begin.
All right, Jaydeep, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your perspective on that story. And we hope that India continue with this form. And in the other match played today at Hamilton, South Africa beat Zimbabwe by 62 runs to register their first points of the 2015 World Cup. Now, South Africa put up a massive 339 for the loss of 4 wickets. All right, let's move on in the bulletin now. Prime Minister Modi today called for innovation and research to develop renewable energy resources in the direction of providing affordable electricity to every household. The first renewable energy global investors meet Reinvest got underway in the national capital as the government looks for quantum leaps in investment in the sector in coming years. Here is more.
An effort towards raising the share of renewable energy in an age of ever-rising energy requirements. The 3-day event looks at promoting investment in the sector and connecting global investors with renewable energy stakeholders in India. Some 200 investors and over 1,000 delegates from across the globe are taking part in this edition. Modi stressed on the need for innovative techniques that could benefit all sections and industries as he called for greater investment in the area.
रिसर्च और इनोवेशन पर बल देना होगा। सिर्फ हम क्वांटम जंप कितना करते हैं, पहले कितना मेगावाट थी और अब कितना गीगावाट हो गए, उससे बात बननी नहीं है। हमने टेक्नोलॉजिकली क्वालिटेटिव चेंज लाने की जरूरत है और उसके लिए रिसर्च की आवश्यकता है। हम जो कुछ भी कर रहे हैं उसमें बल देना चाहिए। दूसरा, मैन्युफैक्चरिंग। हम मेक इन इंडिया की बात कर रहे हैं। हम चाहते हैं कि हमारे सोलार विंड हो, इक्विपमेंट मैन्युफैक्चरिंग पर बल यहां पर मिले।
Solar, wind, biomass as energy sources. The Prime Minister said it was time to look beyond traditional fuels, create a hybrid system of energy creation and aim for a quantum leap in generation. Renewable energy contributes just about 6.5% of India's energy mix. The government has proposed to raise this to 12% over the next 3 to 4 years. Targets have been raised to 100,000 megawatts by 2020.
दुनिया में 50 से अधिक देश ऐसे हैं।
Prime Minister Modi, who made a strong pitch for clean energy at the G20 summit in Brisbane, has said this had to be the way ahead for India and the world.
एक तरफ क्लाइमेट को लेकर के दुनिया बहुत चिंतित है। रिसोर्सेज खत्म होते जा रहे हैं, लोग भयभीत हैं। और दूसरी तरफ प्रकृति के साथ जीवन जीते जीते भी अपनी आवश्यकताओं की पूर्ति कैसे की जाए, उस पर अब गंभीरता से सोचा जा रहा है। और उसी के तहत आज रिन्यूएबल एनर्जी, जिस पे भारत अपना ध्यान केंद्रित करना चाहता है, और भारत अपनी आवश्यकताओं की पूर्ति के लिए हमें दुनिया में अपना झंडा ऊंचा करने के लिए मेहनत नहीं कर रहे हैं।
On day one itself, US-based Sun Edison and First Solar committed to build more than 20,000 megawatts of clean energy capacity in India by 2022. Reinvest, to bring industries working in the states as well as global players onto a single platform for greater coordination, looks for bigger inroads. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha Television.
And the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh began its 4-day meet Manthan in Kanpur today. The meet, to be held behind closed doors, will discuss the organization's strategy to galvanize and energize its cadres for the upcoming assembly elections in Bihar and Uttar Pradesh, while taking up also reasons for the loss in Delhi. Now, apart from the active RSS members, the meeting is being attended by BJP and VHP workers as well. RSS Chief Mohan Bhagwat will address the members at the railway ground today. He'll also take up feedback, including that from the BJP members, to address the organization's shortcomings. The focus will also be on the youth and how to get them associated with the RSS. And more news and updates from across the country in Nationwide. At least 12 people were killed and 2 others were injured after an under-construction building collapsed in Chandoli in Uttar Pradesh. The building collapsed at around 4 in the morning on Sunday. A team of NDRF conducted a rescue operation for almost 6 hours and took out the bodies. Election Commissioner Chief H.S. Brahma has announced the launch of a mission for electoral roll authentication and purification drive from 1st of March. He also advised the officers to come up with suitable action plan to expedite so that the mission could be completed by 15th of August 2015. India's paramilitary force CRPF on Saturday organized a health camp in Maoist-affected villages of Jharkhand. CRPF personnel, as a part of a civic action program, distributed free medicines and utensils to the poor in 200 villages of Latehar district. According to CRPF doctor, so far around 150 to 200 people have already been treated. Alright, we'll take a very short break here. Still to come, a focus on the education sector and expectations really from the Union Budget of 2015-16. That and much more after a short break. Stay with us.
Aimed at protecting the marine environment and human health, all Indian ships will now have to comply with the anti-fouling systems. Will the new merchant shipping law protect India's fragile marine environment?
How do you see this impacting the seamen?
This is going to impact a lot on their health.
Watch our new episode of Law of the Land on the merchant shipping law on Rajya Sabha TV.
Welcome back after the break. You're watching news at 6. Moving on in the bulletin now. Well, Sri Lankan President Maithripala Sirisena landed in New Delhi a short while back for a 3-day official visit to India. Now, this is his first foreign trip after assuming charge. Now, Sirisena is expected to meet the top leadership, including Prime Minister Narendra Modi and President Pranab Mukherjee. They will discuss the key issues, including peace and reconciliation process in Sri Lanka. External Affairs Ministry said that both the countries are looking forward to substantive talks in terms of new agreements and frameworks. The Lankan president will also travel to the Buddhist pilgrimage site Bodh Gaya and also a temple in Tirupati. He will conclude his visit on 18th of February. And on to some international news now. Well, terror struck in Danish capital of Copenhagen early Sunday morning, with a gunman opening fire at a free speech meeting at a cafe and then striking at a synagogue in the city, killing 2 people. Danish police have shot dead the attacker, as the country's prime minister called the attack a cynical act of violence and also an act of terrorism. Take a look.
Another shooting spree in a European city, barely a month after the Paris shooting. Late Saturday, armed men attacked a cafe in Copenhagen where the Swedish cartoonist Lars Vilks and his supporters had gathered for a free speech forum. A 55-year-old man was killed and 3 others wounded in the attack. Hours later, another shooting was reported in a synagogue, in which 1 person was killed and 3 police officers were injured.
Well, we don't know the actual number of persons. What we do know is that we have 2 different incidents in Copenhagen, and in that aspect, we're looking for the guys or the girls who did it in these 2 incidents.
Danish police officials claim that they have killed the suspect. They have also issued 2 still photographs of their accomplice.
Indpå så har vi en antagelse om, at det er den samme gerningsmand, der står bag begge skudepisoder. Og vi har også en antagelse om, at den gerningsmand, som blev skudt af politiets aktionsstyrke ved Nørrebro station.
Denmark is on high alert and a massive manhunt is underway. Police officials have cordoned off the area where the attacks happened. There is heavy security presence across Denmark. Danish Prime Minister Helle Thorning-Schmidt described the shootings as a cynical act of terror against Denmark. World leaders condemned the attacks.
Well, it's obvious that from the first incident that we decided to investigate as a terror attack. seeing an incident, another shooting, shortly after, it makes perfect sense for us to try and investigate it down the same route. So yes, we are, but we don't have the information to confirm it at this time.
Significantly, the free speech gathering at the cafe was labelled as a debate on art and blasphemy. Swedish cartoonist Lars Vilks sparked a controversy in 2007 for depicting Prophet Muhammad in a bad light. He had also received numerous death threats and have been living under constant protection by the Swedish police since 2010. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
And fighting has subsided but not entirely stopped in East Ukraine as a ceasefire came into effect at midnight on Saturday. Even in the hours running up to the truce, fighting raged near Debaltseve but has reportedly eased since. Now locals have voiced relief, though the Ukrainian president admitted that the ceasefire is a flimsy one.
An escalation in hostilities as the ceasefire deadline neared. In the hours leading up to the truce, fierce battles raged between pro-Russian rebels and Ukrainian troops at the key transport hub, Debaltseve, till the Ukrainian president made the official announcement in a televised address.
Всі вони хочуть миру. Хочу миру і я, президент України, Верховний Головнокомандувач Збройних сил України Петро Порошенко. І в якості першого кроку я віддаю зараз наказ Збройним силам України.
As the firing died down, a wave of relief that the Minsk agreement and the return of some calm would in fact get lives back on track. It's a fragile peace with prayers on both sides that it holds.
Не стреляет, иду, как душа радость, треба ж поется. Нам нужен так мир был. Ну мир, конечно, так не любой ценой, а чтобы за пределы Донецкой области ушли украинские войска.
Она была стабильная, конечно. А вот будет она или нет, это не от нас зависит. Правильно? Как вы считаете? Хочется верить в лучшее.
But the Ukrainian president warned it was too early to call the truce concrete. He cited continued firing in Debaltseve, where government forces are hard-pressed by encircling Russian-backed separatists, and he warned that Ukraine would strike back if provoked.
Друзі, я свідомо зараз не буду говорити, що буде робити Україна у випадку, коли мирний процес буде зірваний. Скажу лише одне. Отримавши удар по одній щиці, іншу ми підставляти не будемо. І нехай простить мене Господь.
Watchers say the next 48 hours will be critical. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha Television.
And some more international news in Global Buzz. Nigerian troops have repelled a Boko Haram attack on the northeast city of Gombe. The soldiers and a fighter jet were used in a counter-attack after Islamic fighters overran a checkpoint on the edge of the city. According to witnesses, the insurgents were retreating towards their stronghold in the neighboring state of Borno. Earlier, Nigeria postponed the elections due to be held on Saturday due to insurgency in the northeast. Arab foreign ministers called on the international community to act and take action on Yemen after they met in the Saudi capital Riyadh. Top oil exporter Saudi Arabia, along with other members of the Gulf Cooperation Council, accused the Shia Houthis of staging a coup after they announced that they were dissolving parliament and forming a new government last week. Yemen has been in political limbo since the president and prime minister there resigned last month after the Houthis seized the presidential palace. Protesters blocked streets to Manama to mark the 4th anniversary of the Bahrain uprising. Anti-government demonstrators set up roadblocks and burnt objects on the road. Meanwhile, the riot police used tear gas to disperse the crowd. Bahrain has been shaken by low-level unrest since February 2011 demonstrations during the Arab unrest. The anti-government protesters, mainly Shiites, have long complained of political and economic mismanagement. And on to our countdown to Budget 2015. While government focus on elementary education is a strong demand area, with education is calling for improving the quality of schools rather than raising the numbers alone. Now, hopes are high of the budget outlining steps to take promises to fruition. Here is a report.
Elementary education is one of the major priorities of the government. There would be a residual gap in providing minimal school infrastructure facilities. Government would strive to provide toilets and drinking waters in all the girls' schools in the first place. An amount of rupees 28,635 crore is being funded by the Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan and 4,966 crores by the Rashtriya Madhyamik Shiksha Abhiyan.
Big promises in the Finance Minister's budget speech last year. In pre-budget consultations ahead of Budget 2015-16, educationists want special attention to elementary schooling, with a focus on better schooling infrastructure rather than the sheer number of schools. Areas like poor teaching quality, access and innovation remain aspects that limit learning outcome.
Nothing good is going to be stopped for want of funds. The things that we are now talking about, the classroom management, the pedagogy, I don't think that requires a significant amount of fund. So whatever you have allocated, it can be done with that.
In 2014-15, the education sector received an allocation of 68,728 crore rupees, up from 61,857 crore rupees in 2013-14. The school sector got 51,828 crore rupees, out of which 16,900 crore was given for higher education. This time, educationists demand an allocation of 73,807 crore rupees and an increase of 1% from the total GDP to address the gaps. Educationists say the 2014 budget did bring relief to the sector, but failed to bring about any significant increases in outlays.
There's no sense of urgency. That is a big gap. We think, for example, everybody in the economists and so on will think about foreign investments coming in India and then India will grow. But that human capital, our own human capital, can be limiting in India's growth is not something that people are talking about.
It's clear the government realizes the need for massive reform. To address the problem of the lack of trained teachers and education outcomes, the government introduced initiatives like School Assessment Program and Pandit Madan Mohan Malviya New Teachers Training Program. Social development institutions, however, say measures fall short of what's required.
We could not implement the RT Act. 5 years has gone and only 10% schools are RT compliant.
This year's Annual Status of Education Report, ASER, speaks of India reaching towards universal enrollment. But of this, only 48% of students of class 5th could read a class 2nd text, whereas arithmetic continued to remain a big challenge. In this light, education strategists emphasize the need for greater spending on school inputs, results and quality. Anshu Jaisingh's report for Rajya Sabha TV.
And finally, the parades at the ongoing Rio Festival Carnival are a massive draw. We leave you with the visuals of the second league Samba schools that are battling for a place among the elite. Take a look and have a great evening. Thanks for watching.